for silver and gold.
But before I get started, I would just like to say that Mac Potter, who was introduced to you earlier, and Adam Larson. Mac's our environmental superintendent, so if you have any detailed questions about the environment and the environmental permitting process, Mac has been leading that on behalf of the company along with Mark Wheeler in Toronto. Adam Larson's a senior geologist. He's been with us probably the longest now and knows more about the resource and knows more about the geology on the project than anybody else in the company. I'll give you a little bit of an overview of the company. So Treasury Metals, as most of you know, is a Canadian, wholly owned Canadian gold. This project, it differentiates itself from a number of others in the area in that we are a high-grade deposit compared to Rainy River or Osisko or some of the other projects in the area. And to give you an order of magnitude, the Fort Frances project is about 1.2 grams per ton. Our project is more than 3 times that in terms of the grade. And so if you think of a gram per ton, it's basically 1 part per million. So you got to take a lot of rock out of the ground to get that 1 gram per ton. We now have 1.14 million ounces of recoverable gold through our mining plan in the project. That's gone up considerably. And our mine life is now 13 years if we don't find any more gold, compared to what you saw last time was about a 10-year project. And the infrastructure, I'll talk a little bit more about that, but one of the key differentiators in this project versus most others is we've got most of our infrastructure already in place. Roads, power lines, natural gas pipeline, you name it, it's all kind of there. So that does 2 things for us. It keeps our capital costs lower than most other projects, and it also means that our environmental impact is less because we're not cutting new roads and putting power lines in from scratch. I think most of you know where the project is, but perhaps some who are new to Rotary may not. If you look at where our project is located, we're just east of Thunder Lake and about 4 kilometers from the town of Wabigoon, and the far western extremity of our claims, which you can see outlined in that odd-shaped gray area, is just right on the border of Erin Park and the town of Dryden on the outer extremities. So we brush up against the town boundary lines, and then we go almost to the Sioux Lookout Highway to the east. The history of the Goliath Gold Project, it really started in about 1989 with Teck doing some exploration work, and Teck Corona did a bunch of exploration work, and they basically explored down to Norman's Road, and they couldn't explore any further to the east because Laramide owned that property. And so what happened was Teck, in the early days, found the deposit, had some interest in it. They realized that from their perspective it wasn't big enough to meet their corporate thresholds. So in 2008 they sold their mining claims to Laramide, and then the new company, Laramide, buying the Teck Resources part of the property as well as combining theirs, put the whole project together, and that's how Treasury Metals came to be. Laramide spun Treasury off as a separate company and has been a separate company since. So since 2008, we've basically drilled as a company 140,000 meters, about 20,000 last year. We've done 3 preliminary economic assessments, including one that is just concluding now, and I'll share some of those results with you today. And we're now quite far along in our mine permitting process. We're currently submitting our next phase of information requests to CIA, Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency, and we'll be doing that probably within the next month. Just again, I think it's important for the town of Dryden to know what Treasury is all about. Core values and relationships are very important to us as a company. We want people to work for us and feel good about working for us. So safety, the environment, and people are our 3 core pillars of the company. And we've been able to build our safety culture from the ground up. Pleased to say that in the last 4.5 years, we've had no recordable injuries either with ourselves or our contractors. So maintaining a very high level of safety, performance, and standards. We have a mantra, nothing we do is worth getting hurt over. We've shut down our operations a couple of times when we've had issues come up until those issues got fixed. Environment, We just have one statement, responsible stewards of the lands on which we operate. But I can tell you that the environmental aspects of our project probably take about 60 to 70% of our total time, energy, and effort. And people and stakeholders, we're all about people. People is where it's at. The difference between good companies and bad companies, successful companies and unsuccessful companies is strictly people. It's got nothing to do with equipment or anything else. So we treat our people with respect and dignity, and if you ever have a perception that that's not the case with Treasury Metals, we'd like you to tell us, and we'll deal with that issue and we'll solve that problem. So I'll talk a little bit about the geology in the area and our mine configuration. This is kind of an important slide because what it shows is the area geology, and if you just think about it from this perspective, most of the pinky purpley tones are granites and rocks of that nature, which really don't hold a lot of interest in terms of being mineralized. If you look at the green bands, that's what we call greenstone, and it's in those particular bands that you'll usually find more mineralization and mineralization of interest that we have, such as gold. And so you can see in this area here, there's Dryden up there, Fort Francis, band of green that goes all the way up to Sioux Lookout. There's a lot of prospecting and a lot of gold that has been basically found in that whole area, and we're on that greenstone belt. So if you look at our deposit, again, this is Thunder Lake, a little bit of Thunder Lake, that's Hofstrom's Bay in here. You see this thin red line here, that's actually our deposit. That's the deposit, and if you look at how the rocks are set up in through here, you can see that there's probably some interesting further areas to explore, which we've done a little bit of exploration, but not a lot to date. But again, future opportunities. But this is the main deposit that now has 1.1 million ounces of recoverable gold. And that's been a key focus area. If you look at where we are here with Wabigoon Lake, this is the Trans-Canada Highway. This is the natural gas pipeline in yellow. This is Anderson Road, and this is Tree Nursery Road up here. And our offices are located right up here. So you just come off the highway, right up Tree Nursery Road, and Norman Road crosses right here. So what Adam and the geologists look for when they do their drilling is primarily sphalerite and galena, which is really zinc and lead. Those are the two minerals that basically give us an indication of whether or not we're likely to find gold. So when we see sphalerite and galena, we start getting excited about the prospects of likely finding gold associated with those two minerals. So this is what gets us excited. This is actually Treasury Metals core, and a day where you actually get some core where you actually see visible gold. That's when the whole building lights up. Everybody knows about it and gets pretty excited. Interestingly enough, you can get some pretty good gold grades in rock that you can't see no gold. So here again is our property, and you can see along the gold deposit, this is primarily where most of the holes have been drilled. We've drilled over 700 drill holes between ourselves and Teck, and I'll show you that breakdown in a moment. You can see that we've done some exploration further out in the property, but it's been pretty spotty. The only reason we haven't done more is because it takes a lot of money to drill, and we wanted to make sure we concentrated on this deposit, got it into operation so we could generate the cash to do some further exploration. So we know that because this deposit is open at depth, and it's also open along strike, that 13 years once we get into production would be the minimum mine life, and it's likely to be longer because we'll keep going down, and there's a very high probability that we'll find more gold out here that we can bring into the plant. So just very briefly to show you what's been done. Teck 1989 to 98, 320 holes, almost 100,000 meters, and they spent $9.7 million back in the day on that property. Treasury Metals since 08, but we've drilled over 140,000 exploration holes. We're doing another 5,000 of infill or condemnation drilling, and what that is where we plan to put the plant. we've got to poke holes in the ground there to make sure we don't put the plant on top of more gold and then have to move it. That's actually happened before. So we've spent as Treasury Metals another 62.7 million since 2008. So in total, that property has had over $72 million spent on it to date. And we still don't have a production decision. So very expensive business to get a mine going, and obviously it takes a lot of time if you think about the fact that we've been working that property one way or the other since 1989. So what's the result of all of that drilling? Well, you can see a few, these thin lines are actual drill holes, and you can see what the deposit looks like as you cut through the earth. And it's made up of all of these high-grade chutes of gold. There's two main chutes. You can see the red lines. These are where we have our big hits of gold, higher concentrations. And these yellow lines are the kind of rock that we normally would find the gold in our particular area. So if you cut through the earth, that's what the gold deposit actually looks like when we put it all together. So then, if you look at the surface and you envision the open pit with all of those chutes going down, to give you a context, this is Tree Nursery Road here, and so our offices would be here. Here's Norman Road here, and so this is what the open pit would look like, this brown outline here. And then within that pit, we would be basically mining those high-grade zones here. And then when you get underground, we'll pick up those zones and mine underground. So that pit's about 1.5 kilometers long currently and about 400 meters wide. Again, just thinking about the infrastructure and where we're located, this is the road, Tree Nursery Road up to our offices. So just past the power lines would be where our tailings storage facility would be. This is the open pit here. The plant would be located right beside the power lines. Most companies have to run hundreds or tens of kilometers of power to a mine site. We literally just have to reach up and grab it. In fact, we have to make sure we're far enough away from the power line so we don't run into the electrical interferences. And so this is our overburden pile here, and this is our waste rock pile here, and our overburden pile here. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we do with those things in the future. And again, power line, natural gas. What we're hoping to do as a result of some of our public consultations, instead of running the natural gas up the road, which was our first plan, some people on East Thunder Lake Drive said, well, why don't you run it down here, and then we can pick up natural gas and get off of expensive Ontario Hydro. So that sounded like a great idea to us, and one of the practical reasons why you have open houses and get public input. So we'll likely do that, run the natural gas up here and across. So I don't know about you, but for me, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And so this is what the mine would look like when it's in operation. Coming off the highway, up Tree Nursery Road. There's Norman Road, power line across here. The tailings storage facility would be up here. This is the open pit. And you can see there's kind of 3 big pit depths. And within those ore bodies, there are actually high-grade chutes. And so where the high-grade chutes are, we would mine down to the bottom, the economic value of that, and then it thins out in between the high-grade chutes. One of the things that I'll mention a little bit later too is, as a result of what we've done, we've actually made the pit now about 33% smaller and increased our underground operations. So waste rock storage would be on the north side, overburden on the south. We have collection ponds because we're going to collect all of the rainwater and all of the processed water from the whole site, run those back into the tailings storage facility, treat the water before we release it, both pre-construction, construction, operation, and post-closure. Waste rock storage, we're also going to be progressively reclaiming, and by that I mean we're going to take overburden once that pile starts getting built, place it on there and start greening it up to create a buffer even while we're building the rest of the pile. So the impact, visual impact and impact on noise will be minimized through the whole project. Processing plant is right here, and if you think about the size of the arena complex, that's about the size of what this plant is, so it's actually pretty small. If you look underground, this is actually the mine plan model that was built by our consultant. So once we get to the bottom of the pit, then we would have a ramp that goes underground and then stopes that go in, and we would go in and mine anything from sort of 3 meters to 10 meters wide, and then backfill that as we keep going down. Backfilling with tailings and also concrete, so we'll have a backfill plant there. So our intention is to pick all that up. We're pretty excited about this year because we're likely to do another 30,000 meter program, and we expect with that 30,000 meter program, we'll add more underground ounces than we've got even today. So that should make the project economics even better. So here's really the difference between what you saw last time and some of the really good stuff. Everything that's in green is an improvement to the project, and even some of the red, still in our mind, is an improvement to the project. If we look at the gold and silver production, ounces, if you look at the gold ounces, they're now up by 349,000 ounces compared to where we were before, recoverable ounces. So that's up 44% compared to the last preliminary economic assessment that you saw. Silver is up 10%. Interestingly, even though this is a gold project, in terms of the raw number of ounces, we'll be mining about 2 million silver ounces and just over 1 million gold ounces. But silver gives you about 1/50th of the economic effect of gold, so it's not a big player at the end of the day. Gold really drives the whole project. But again, significantly up in our gold. If you look at where the gold is going to be produced, the open pit now is down by 162,000 ounces, but the underground operation is up by 500,000 ounces. So what that's allowed us to do is to shrink the open pit by about 33%. So it's less of an environmental footprint than it had before, and that's a big boon to the project. So the underground gold's up by more than 100%, and the above ground gold extraction is down by half. The average gold production is up about 13%, about 10,000 more ounces a year than we had before. And of course that's a big driver in the economics. Same mill feed rate, about 2,500 tons a day. The total ore being mined now is up a little bit, about 9.8 million tons of ore versus 9 million before. And the big change of where we're mining, it was about 50-50 before, about 4.5 million above ground and 4.5 million underground. Now we're mining about 6.6 million underground and only 3.2 above ground. So the underground is significantly higher. And again, I mentioned earlier, the mine life has gone from 10 years to 13 years, so it's up about 30%. We've changed our assumptions as well about gold pricing, and interestingly enough, it's actually better today even with a lower gold price because of the exchange rate. But initially, back in 2012, if you recall, when the dollar was about at par and gold was around $1,400 an ounce, we were forecasting a gold price of $1,375. We've now lowered that to $1,225, so that's down about $150, but it's only 11% when you think of it that way. It's only 11%. Silver, on the other hand, has gone from $26 to $17, which is down 35%. So that silver's down a lot more than gold. Exchange rate, we've gone from 102, about 98 cent dollar, to $1.32. So exchange rate has moved in our favor by almost 30%, which is huge because we sell in US dollars and we manufacture in Canadian dollars. Capital has gone up significantly, up about 44%. We weren't comfortable that the capital number back in 2012 was a good number anyway. So we've done quite a bit of work, and we're very confident now that we can build the above ground operations for about $133 million, and we'll spend about the same amount of money, about $132 million underground. But we'll use the monies that we're generating in the first couple of years with the open pit operation to fund the underground operation, to get it going, and then the underground operation, once all the infrastructure is built, basically will be self-sustaining, plus we'll also be generating a lot more cash. Cash operating costs have gone down from $6.98 US an ounce to $5.25. Again, that's a big effect of the exchange rate. All-in sustaining costs, it used to be that mining companies, and this is where shareholders always got driven crazy because I invested all this money and your company's going down the tubes, what's going on? They only ever talked about cash costs. They just forgot about mentioning all of the money that you had to put in to actually get the thing going. Like in Rainy River's case, $1 billion. And so we include that now. So our all-in cash sustaining cost is $9.30 US back in 2012. Now it's down to $6.11. And our economics, this is huge for us. We've gone from 144 million of net present value, which is really the money that the mine is going to generate after a 5% return, up to 306 million. So that's gone up by 162 million over the life of the mine, which is up about 112% versus where we were. So that's been a huge driver and why we're excited, why the investment community is starting to get excited in this project. Project schedule, we're now looking realistically at a 2020 startup date, second half of 2020. Socioeconomic benefits, we've talked about this before. We have a higher local policy, purchase local policy. We purchase goods and services from over 85 Dryden businesses. We purchase almost nothing from outside of the province. There are some things we have to, like some specialized engineering. So we're very focused on that. Hire locally. Mac's a local guy. Adam's a local guy. I'm a local guy. We have a lot of local people working for us. There are some skills we can't get locally. I've talked about it before, but our location is excellent. We think it's going to be very easy for us to attract a labor force. We know that people would like to come back to Dryden who left because of downsizing in the mill. Also people who are living in camps, whether it's Musselwhite or elsewhere, or some people in Dryden working in Red Lake would like to come back here. It's nice to be able to drive home to your family every night rather than fly in and out every 2 weeks. Aboriginal consultation, we have 6 communities that we consult with and 2 other Aboriginal groups, the Métis Nation of Ontario and the Aboriginal people of Wabigoon. We're very pleased with where we are right now in terms of our Aboriginal consultation. And I'm in this project and I'm excited about it. That's why I'm in it. I'm not excited about it because I'm in it. I'm in it because I'm excited about it. And what we've seen develop over the last couple of years in particular, I think it'll bring more jobs to town and keep our youth here. This is probably one of our best opportunities in terms of something large that can happen here. So we'll keep moving forward with it. As I said, 13-year mine life, excellent economics, 2020 startup, and even beyond the mine life, there's still a number of years of closure and post-closure activities which will create a lot of employment for people going forward. So technical people, people with high school educations, and everybody in between. So that's all I had. Sorry for being so long. I did cut it down from 90 plus.
How many people do you think it's going to employ?
It's a little bit in flux, but I'd say a good number when we're running underground and above ground is about 150 people. And then there'll be about another 600 or 700 people in town employed indirectly to support that group. Teachers, stores, shopkeepers, you name it.
That all in cost, is that like, is that cash cost all in, or does that include anything like interest and debt payments and things like that?
Yeah, it includes all of the sustaining capital, interest payments, debt payments, all of that as well. Yeah.
How deep is your pits going to be, your surface pits versus your underground? How deep do you expect to go?
Yeah, good question. The pits are going to range from about 130 to 150 meters, and underground will go down to at least 600 meters, maybe a bit more.
Thanks very much. Norm?
So, any more questions?
Oh, yep, go ahead.
Just a quick question. When you say mid-2020, is that for production or is that when everything will start up there?
That's for production. Yeah. It's about 2 years from now for permitting and probably a year and a half for production decision. And then once we have a production decision and it doesn't look like any big red flags, we'll start ordering the long delivery parts. Well, thanks again. I appreciate everybody's time.